After 9 weeks of regular season football, the second season is finally here. We're talking playoffs on Inside the Zone with Tom Davis of the News Sentinel. We're going to break down every local bracket, and that, of course, starts in 5A with our big schools. And we'll take a look at the Carroll bracket for Sectional 2 action. This doesn't have a whole lot of local teams in it, but it does have some interesting matchups, especially if you look forward to the second round. And we'll start off with Carroll battling LaPorte. LaPorte comes in 1-8, so you got to assume that Doug Dinan's going to have this team ready.
Well, first of all, the Fort Wayne area teams tend to do well against teams from outside the area because the talent level is so strong in this area, and so they face really good teams all season long. And then when you're outside of this area, you just don't face the competition, and so sometimes the records can really, I mean, when you look at 7-2 Carroll versus 1-8 LaPorte, you immediately think a blowout. But even factoring in Carroll's played in a tough NHC and all of that, it's going to be even more dominant for Carroll. So really the matchup to focus on is that second round. If Penn can get past Warsaw, which I assume they can, even though Warsaw's had a good 6-3 season, Carroll versus Penn is a great matchup. And we'll see if the Chargers can represent the city well against the mighty Kingsmen.
I'm not even sure. I know Penn's very good. They're good year in and year out. Snyder knows that. Everybody in the area knows that. But that Warsaw team, 6-3, the game's at Warsaw. It's going to be on the turf. We've had such bad weather throughout the season. If you can run the football like Warsaw can run the football, I know Penn's got a quarterback that can run it quite a bit. He's a good athlete, a good baseball player from what I'm told. But if you take a look at Tristan McClone, the guy's got almost 2,000 yards this year on the ground. They can run it. Warsaw 6-3. I know they got beat pretty badly this past week, but I think that could be a closer game than anybody thinks.
Well, a big factor in that game could also be the weather in all these games, because turnovers are so critical. And if you get the weather, I mean, we saw it at Notre Dame this past weekend, fumbles galore. Ball State game had a bunch of fumbles, and so if you get rain, and now they won't have mud and muck over at Warsaw, but if you get rain and a slick field and a slick ball and all that, turnovers really kill teams. And so a lot of times it's a team that takes care of the ball better that can end up maybe pulling off the upset.
I know maybe at the beginning of the season you would have been tough to pick Carroll over Penn, but if they do meet in the second round, considering the way Carroll's offense has really played well, they put up over 60 last week. This could be a competitive game if Penn and Carroll play.
Oh, the Tranquil brothers are tough on both sides of the ball. Terry's tough quarterbacking. I mean, that's the thing about Carroll. They're not one-dimensional. A lot of times you see a program and maybe they have a great player on one side of the ball and they're a great quarterback. And I don't want to talk about Homestead in the past. Sometimes they're one-dimensional. But Carroll can really play well on both sides of the ball. And so, yeah, a balanced Carroll team, it's not entirely unthinkable to think that they could knock off Penn.
Yeah, Jimmy Crumley gives them a lot of balance coming there out of the backfield. He's a talented guy as a senior running back. Moving on to Sectional 3, this is where we see most of our local teams on the 5A level. Northside, Northrop in the first round, Southside at Huntington North, Wayne at Kokomo, Homestead at Snyder. We're going to talk about that Homestead-Snyder game because it's a huge one. But Northside, Northrop, they played this past week, so they're very familiar. It's going to be a Thursday night game at Spooler Stadium. C.J. Jackson got a little bit dinged up against Northrop, only played the first 2 quarters. Coach Hall says he's going to be fine. But if you're Northrop, they've been a Jekyll and Hyde team. Some weeks you say, wow, this team can really play. Other weeks you're like, how does this team win a game? So you never know what you're going to get, especially at home.
Northrop played with Bishop Luers and they played with Wayne. I think that sums it up, doesn't it? But so I'm hesitant to say Northrop's not going to be able to hang with Northside. I think Northside, without question, is the much better team, more physical. They have the speed, but good Lord, Northrop, who knows what you're getting with that box of chocolates. And so Northrop is capable of playing with Northside. It's interesting that this draw happened identical to what it did last year where they had to play back-to-back again. I think I would fully expect Northside to win this game comfortably, much like they did last week. And I know everybody's going to focus on Homestead Snyder, as they should. I don't know if that'll be a great game. It's a very interesting game going into it. But I tell you, the matchup that really has me intrigued is Southside at Huntington North.
I agree.
You have the speed and athleticism of Southside and the skill of Schnitz at Huntington North. Boy, that's a great matchup. And I don't know if Huntington North is capable of containing a disciplined, efficient Southside team that can really create a lot of big plays, not only with their offense but defense and their special teams. You got to watch them on punt returns and kickoff returns as well. So I think that's a great game.
Yeah, Southside has improved every week. In week 3 or week 4, they decided to move Donovan Clark from the quarterback position. They use him in a variety of different ways. He's a speed weapon. Aaron Thomas can return kicks. They got a lot of speed on that Mabel. They've got speed guys. And they asked Gary Wallace how many points they can put up. This Huntington North game may be the first team to 50 will win it.
Oh, it could be. And Schnitz will have how many touchdown passes?
You know what? I bet Coach Fields hopes it's less than 9.
Well, yeah. I have a feeling he won't break the state record again, but that doesn't mean his arm won't be sore on Saturday morning.
All right, Wayne's got a tough one traveling to Kokomo. Kokomo always good. They knocked off Homestead in the playoffs last year in the second round. But let's get to that Homestead-Snyder matchup. This is the one you always figure they're probably going to meet in the playoffs.
Right.
And the question is, can Homestead beat a really, really good SAC team? In the past, unfortunately for Spartans fans, they have not.
No is the answer to that. History shows, until Sparty does it, I won't believe it. And look, they have a fantastic program. They have a lot to be proud of. They have great kids, great coaching. They really play smart, efficient football. But no, they're not physically tough enough like the Snyder kids are. The Snyder kids are mean. I mean, watch that defense play. They hit hard. They're fast. They're strong. Snyder's just tougher than Homestead is. That's all there is to it. And so I think Snyder will end up winning by 14, 17 points.
If you're Homestead, what are you focusing on practice this week to make this a game where you can win it?
They have to be more physical, and they have to be more physical up front. We saw the Snyder offensive line just really get physical with the Northside defensive line a few weeks ago. That Snyder offensive line really keys everything. It keys their running game. It gives them some time, Brandon Phelps some time to pass. And I think the Homestead defensive line has to win that battle with Snyder's offensive line. I don't think they can, but that is going to determine who wins this game. Is the battle of the trenches. The Homestead defensive line has to get pressure on Phelps, but they also have to be disciplined because Snyder has so many different guys that can run the ball, and Smith and Swain and Reese, that you have to be disciplined in your responsibilities and not get out of position, because if Snyder's running backs get an angle on you, gone.
And when you look at this bracket, I think most people would predict, maybe a Snyder Northside rematch in the sectional championship game. It would be nice to see what would happen when the field isn't all mucked up like it was at Chambers Field early in the season, and maybe Northside gets a little more of that air attack going against that Snyder defense. That'll be interesting to see.
Well, I shouldn't predict these games because my record in the paper you can see is not that great.
It's okay.
It's not as good as Glenn's, but
wow.
I tell you, I have to think the Northside and Snyder will end up meeting in the championship. But hey, they play these games for a reason, so you never know. And I just gave Sparty some incentive to prove me wrong.